I was born to create beauty. My fingers traced patterns on fabric the way others read words on a page. At 26 years old, I had already won the Seoul Fashion Design Award and was preparing for my first international showcase in Paris. My name is Yoona Kim, and I thought my biggest challenge would be choosing between silk and satin for my spring collection. I was wrong about everything. My younger brother Jihoon was everything to me. After our parents died in a factory fire when I was 16, I raised him alone. I worked 3 jobs while studying design at night school. Every sacrifice I made was so he could have the education I never finished. He was in his final year of medical school, just months away from becoming the doctor he always dreamed of being. The morning everything changed started like any other. I was in my small studio in Itaewon, surrounded by fabric swatches and half-finished sketches. The spring sunlight filtered through dusty windows as I worked on the centerpiece of my Paris collection. The dress was going to be magnificent, a blend of traditional Korean hanbok silhouettes with modern European elegance. I had been dreaming about this design for years. My phone rang. An unknown number. Yoona Kim? This is Seoul National University Hospital. Your brother Jihoon has been in a serious accident. You need to come immediately. The world stopped spinning. The needle slipped from my fingers. The beautiful fabric I had been working on fell to the floor, forgotten. I do not remember the taxi ride to the hospital. I do not remember running through the sterile white corridors. I only remember the doctor's face, grave and measured, as he explained that Jihoon had been struck by a car while crossing the street near Gangnam Station during his morning commute. He has severe internal bleeding and a traumatic brain injury. He needs emergency surgery, but the specialized treatment he requires will cost approximately 500 million won. Without it, he may not survive the week. 500 million won. I had maybe 2 million in savings. My studio apartment in Itaewon was rented. My sewing machine was secondhand. Everything I owned could not pay for a fraction of what my brother needed. There has to be something you can do. Please. He is only 24. He has his whole life ahead of him. He is going to be a doctor. He wants to help people. The doctor looked at me with genuine sympathy. Miss Kim, I wish I could help. But this hospital requires payment before we can proceed with the surgery. Perhaps you have family or friends who could assist? I had no one. It had always been just Jihoon and me against the world. Our parents had no surviving relatives. Our friends were as poor as we were. I sat in the waiting room for hours, calling everyone I knew. Former classmates, old employers, even the fashion magazine that had featured my work last year. No one could help. No one had that kind of money. They offered condolences, sympathy, prayers, but prayers could not pay for brain surgery. As night fell over Seoul, I stood outside the hospital, watching the city lights flicker against the Han River in the distance. The beautiful Seoul skyline that I had always loved now seemed cold and indifferent to my suffering. All those gleaming towers full of money, and my brother was dying because I could not afford to save him. I thought about calling the media, making a public appeal. But I knew how those stories ended. By the time enough donations trickled in, Jihoon would be gone. Excuse me? Are you Yoona Kim? I turned to find a man in an immaculate black suit standing behind me. He was tall, with sharp features and eyes that seemed to hold 1,000 secrets. Something about him made me step back instinctively. Who are you? My name is Secretary Park. I represent someone who may be able to help with your brother's medical expenses. How do you know about my brother? Secretary Park smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Mr. Kang Do-yoon knows everything that happens in this city. He has a proposition for you. I should have walked away. Every instinct told me that this was dangerous, that whatever this Mr. Kang wanted would cost me far more than money. But then I thought of Jihoon lying unconscious in that hospital bed, his life slipping away with every passing minute. What does he want? Secretary Park handed me a business card. It was simple black cardstock with gold lettering. Kang Do-yoon, CEO, Kang Industries. Come to this address tomorrow morning at 9. Mr. Kang will explain everything. And Miss Kim? I would advise you to accept his offer. Your brother does not have much time. That night, I did not sleep. I sat by Jihoon's bedside, holding his hand and watching the machines that kept him alive. His face was peaceful, as if he were only sleeping. But I could see the bruises spreading across his skin, the bandages wrapped around his head. What would you tell me to do, Jihoon? Would you want me to make a deal with a stranger to save your life? But I already knew the answer. Jihoon would do anything for me. He had worked part-time throughout medical school to help pay our rent. He had given up his dream of studying abroad so he could stay close and take care of me. He had been the one to encourage my fashion dreams when everyone else said I was wasting my time. Now it was my turn to sacrifice everything for him. The address on the business card led me to the Kang Industries headquarters in Gangnam. The building was a tower of glass and steel, rising 60 floors into the Seoul sky. It was the kind of building that made ordinary people feel small and insignificant. I was definitely feeling both as I stepped through the revolving doors. The lobby was all white marble and modern art. A fountain cascaded down one wall, the sound of water doing nothing to calm my nerves. Security guards in crisp uniforms watched me with suspicious eyes. I clutched my worn handbag tighter and approached the reception desk. I am here to see Mr. Kang Do-hyun. My name is Yoona Kim. The receptionist gave me a once-over that made me painfully aware of my cheap clothes and tired face. Please wait here. Secretary Park appeared moments later, emerging from an elevator like a ghost. Miss Kim. Right on time. Mr. Kang appreciates punctuality. The elevator ride to the top floor felt like ascending to a different world. With each floor we passed, I felt myself moving further from everything I knew. The numbers climbed higher and higher until they stopped at 60. When the doors opened, I found myself in an office that could have fit my entire apartment inside it 10 times over. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of Seoul, from the mountains in the north to the river in the south. I could see the hospital where Jihoon lay dying, just a tiny speck in the vast cityscape. And there, standing with his back to me, gazing out at his kingdom, was Kang Do-hyun. He turned, and I felt my breath catch. The photographs I had seen of him in business magazines did not do him justice. He was devastatingly handsome, with dark hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from marble. But it was his eyes that held me captive. They were dark and intense, filled with a cold intelligence that made me feel like he could see straight through to my soul. Yoona Kim. He said my name like he was tasting it, rolling each syllable around his tongue. The fashion designer from Itaewon, winner of the Seoul Fashion Design Award 2 years running, currently preparing for your debut showcase at Paris Fashion Week. You know a lot about me. I know everything about you, including the fact that your brother Jihoon is currently in the intensive care unit of Seoul National University Hospital, and you have no way to pay for his treatment. I felt my hands clench into fists at my sides. Why do you care about my brother? I do not. Kang Do-hyun crossed the room, his expensive shoes silent on the thick carpet. But I do care about something you can give me. Something only you can provide. What could I possibly have that you want? I am a nobody, a struggling designer with a dying brother and no money. He smiled then, but it was not a pleasant expression. It was the smile of a predator who had cornered his prey. Have you heard of the Seo family? Of course I had. Everyone in Seoul knew the Seo family. They were one of the oldest and wealthiest chaebol families in Korea, rivaling even the Kang family in influence. Their company, Seo Holdings, controlled everything from electronics to real estate. The chairman, Seo Jae-won, was a legend in business circles. What about them? 28 years ago, Seo Jae-won, the current chairman, had a daughter with his first wife. That daughter was taken abroad by her mother after a bitter divorce and has not been seen since. Her name was Seo Minji. I still do not understand what this has to do with me. Kang Do-hyun reached into his jacket and pulled out a photograph. He held it up next to my face. This is a picture of Seo Minji taken when she was 12 years old, shortly before she disappeared. I looked at the photo and felt the floor shift beneath my feet. The girl in the picture could have been my twin. The same oval face, the same delicate features, the same slightly upturned nose, even the same small mole beneath her left eye. Looking at her was like looking into a mirror that reflected the past. You look exactly like her, Kang Do-hyun said, his voice low and intense. And I need you to become her. The words hung in the air between us, impossible and yet somehow inevitable. You want me to pretend to be someone else, to lie to an entire family, To commit fraud. I want you to take your rightful place. What does that mean? It means that Seo Jae-won is dying. He has stage 4 cancer and less than 6 months to live. His only son, Seo Min-ho, has been running the company into the ground with his gambling and poor decisions. The board is desperate for an alternative heir. The stock price has dropped 30% in the last year alone. And you think I am that alternative? I think that if Seo Min-ji were to return now, after all these years, her father would be overjoyed. He would welcome her with open arms. He would give her everything she deserves. And more importantly, he would have a reason to reconsider who inherits his empire. I shook my head, trying to make sense of what he was saying. This is insane. Even if I look like her, I know nothing about being part of a Chaebol family. I do not know their history, their relationships, their secrets. I cannot even speak formal Korean properly. I grew up poor. I have never been to a gala or a board meeting or a country club. Which is why I will teach you. Kang Do-hyun moved to his desk and opened a thick file. I have been preparing for this for years. I have every document, every photograph, every piece of information you will need to become Seo Min-ji. Every detail of her life before she left Korea. Every scrap of information about what happened to her abroad. But why? Why do you care who inherits the Seo fortune? For the first time, something flickered in those cold eyes. Something that looked almost like pain. Because Seo Jae-hwan destroyed my family. 20 years ago, he drove my father to suicide and took everything we had. My mother died of a broken heart 6 months later. I was 8 years old, and I was left with nothing except a burning desire for revenge. I am sorry for what happened to you. Truly. But that does not mean I should help you steal from his family. Steal? Kang Do-hyun laughed, but there was no humor in it. I am not asking you to steal anything. I am asking you to take what should rightfully be yours. Seo Min-ji is gone. She cannot claim her inheritance, but you can. You can become her and use that position to expose the Seo family's crimes. I am not Seo Min-ji. I cannot just become another person. No. But you are the closest thing to her that exists. And once you are inside that family, you will have access to everything I need to bring Seo Jae-won down. Financial records, secret dealings, evidence of the crimes he committed against my father and countless others. I stepped back, my mind reeling. I will not help you destroy innocent people. Even if Seo Jae-won did what you say, that does not make his whole family guilty. Innocent? Seo Min-ho has assaulted 3 women. His father paid off each victim to stay silent. Seo Jae-won has bribed politicians, manipulated stock prices, and ruined countless small businesses. This family is a cancer on Korean society. Even if that is true, I am not a criminal. I am not going to commit fraud. Kang Do-hyun moved closer, his voice dropping to almost a whisper. His cologne surrounded me, something expensive and subtle. Like cedar and rain. Your brother is dying, Yuna. Every hour you spend debating morality is an hour closer to his death. I am offering you 500 million won, more than enough to save his life and give him the best care in the world. The surgery, the rehabilitation, everything he needs. And all I have to do is become someone else. All you have to do is survive. Kang Do-hyun's eyes locked with mine. The Seo family is not kind to outsiders. But if you can make them believe you are Min-ji, if you can earn their trust and find the evidence I need, I will not only pay for your brother's surgery, I will set you up for life. You will never have to worry about money again. You can open your own fashion house. You can give your brother the future he deserves. I thought about Jae-hoon. I thought about all the years he had worked so hard, sacrificing his own dreams to support us both. I thought about the machines keeping him alive, counting down the minutes until they would be disconnected. And I thought about what kind of person I would become if I agreed to this. If I say yes, I said slowly, you have to promise me that no one will be physically hurt. No violence, no putting people in danger, and no evidence of crimes that do not actually exist. I will not frame innocent people. Agreed. And if I find evidence that proves the Seo family is innocent, we stop. I will not help you destroy people who do not deserve it. Something flickered across Kang Do-hyun's face. Surprise, perhaps. Or respect. Fine. But I do not think you will find them innocent. I have spent 20 years researching this family. I know what they are. Then we have a deal. Kang Do-yoon extended his hand. His grip was firm and cold. Welcome to the Seo family, Minji. I shook his hand, and I felt like I was signing my soul away. Over the next 2 weeks, Ji-hoon's surgery was successfully completed. The doctor said it was a miracle. The damage to his brain had been severe, but the surgery had relieved the pressure and stopped the bleeding. He would need months of rehabilitation, but he would live. I visited him every day, sitting by his bedside and holding his hand while he slept. The bruises on his face slowly faded. His vital signs stabilized. And all the while, I was transforming into someone else entirely. Kang Do-hyun spared no expense. He brought in a team of experts to teach me everything about the Seo family, their history, going back 5 generations, their business dealings, both legal and questionable, the names and personalities of every family member and trusted employee. I studied photographs until I could recognize faces I had never seen in person. He also taught me how to carry myself like a chaebol princess, how to walk with my shoulders back and my chin lifted, how to speak with quiet authority, how to look at servants without really seeing them, how to handle a 12-course meal with 3 different forks. I hated every minute of it, but I also learned things about the real Seo Minji that surprised me. She had been a bright, kind child who loved painting and playing the piano. Her mother, Lee Ji-yeon, had been a famous singer before marrying Seo Jae-hwan. After the divorce, mother and daughter had moved to the United States, where Ji-yeon slowly drank herself to death. And Minji? According to Kang Do-yeon's research, she had died in a car accident when she was 18. A single-car crash on a rainy night in California. Her body had been so badly damaged that identification was done through dental records. The story never made the Korean news. Seo Jae-hwan never even knew his daughter was dead. So the real Minji is gone, I said, feeling sick. Her father does not know. Her father never cared to find out. Kang Do-hyun's voice was bitter. He could have searched for them at any time. He had the money and resources. He could have hired private investigators, used his business connections, even hired government agencies to help. But he was too busy building his empire to worry about the wife and daughter he had discarded. Maybe he was protecting them by staying away. Maybe she asked him not to contact them. Or maybe he is exactly what I think he is. A cold, selfish man who only cares about power. I did not argue. I was learning that Kang Do-yeon saw the world in black and white. There were good people and bad people, and once he decided which category you belonged to, nothing could change his mind. It was not my job to change his perspective. It was my job to save my brother. On the day of my debut as Seo Minji, I stood in front of a mirror in one of the Kang Industries conference rooms and did not recognize myself. My hair had been styled into an elegant low bun. My makeup was subtle but flawless, emphasizing my natural resemblance to the photographs of the real Minji. The dress I wore was one of my own designs, a cream-colored, hanbok-inspired gown that made me look like I had stepped out of a historical drama. I had spent 3 nights making it, pouring all my anxiety and fear into the delicate stitching. You look perfect. Kang Do-yeon stood behind me, his reflection meeting mine in the mirror. Are you ready? No, but I do not have a choice. You always have a choice, Yuna. He said my real name softly, almost tenderly. The contrast with his usual coldness caught me off guard. No matter what happens in that house, remember who you really are. And remember that I am on your side. For a moment, I almost believed him. The Seo family mansion was located in Pyeongchang-dong, one of the wealthiest neighborhoods in Seoul. The road wound up through ancient pine trees, past homes that each cost more than I would earn in 10 lifetimes. The air was cleaner here, crisper, as if even pollution knew better than to intrude on the wealthy. The house itself was a sprawling traditional hanok, beautifully preserved but modernized with all the latest technology. Gardens stretched in every direction, filled with pine trees and carefully raked gravel paths. A koi pond shimmered in the afternoon light. It was the kind of home I had only seen in dramas. Secretary Park drove me through the massive gates, past security guards who eyed me with suspicion. Remember, he said as we pulled up to the main entrance, you are coming home after 20 years abroad. You are nervous but determined to reconnect with your father before he dies. You know nothing about Korean business customs, which will explain any mistakes you make. If anyone asks about your mother, you loved her, but she never talked about the past. She died of an illness when you were 18. I nodded, my throat too tight to speak. The front door opened, and a woman in a traditional hanbok stepped out. She was in her 50s, with a kind face lined by years of worry. Miss Minji? Tears were already streaming down her cheeks. Is it really you? I took a deep breath and stepped out of the car. Hello. I am sorry, but I do not remember you. The woman rushed forward and took my hands in hers. Of course you do not remember. You were so young when you left. I am Mrs. Jang, the head housekeeper. I was here when you were born. I held you in my arms. I watched you take your first steps in that very garden. The emotion in her voice was so genuine that I felt my own eyes sting with tears. I am sorry it took me so long to come back. Mrs. Jang led me through the house, pointing out rooms and sharing memories of my supposed childhood. The library where my mother used to sing me lullabies, the garden where I had taken my first steps, the piano room that had been locked since I left. Your mother used to play the most beautiful music in that room, she said softly. After she left, the master could not bear to hear anyone else play. He locked the room and forbade anyone from entering. Every story made me feel like more of a fraud. This woman had real memories of the real Minji, real love for a child who no longer existed, and here I was, stealing her joy. Finally, we reached a set of double doors at the end of a long hallway. Your father is waiting for you, Mrs. Jang said. She squeezed my hands one more time. He has dreamed of this day for so long. Please, be gentle with him. He is not as strong as he used to be. I pushed open the doors and stepped into what had once been a grand study. Now it was more like a hospital room. Medical equipment lined the walls. A private nurse stood by the window checking monitors. The smell of antiseptic hung in the air, and in the center of the room, propped up in a hospital bed, was Seo Jae-won. He was thinner than I had expected, his once powerful frame wasted by disease. But his eyes were still sharp, still calculating, as they fixed on my face. I could see the intelligence there, the businessman who had built an empire. I could also see something else, something vulnerable, something hopeful. Minji. His voice was barely a whisper. My daughter. Father. The word felt strange on my tongue. I had not called anyone father since I was 8 years old, since the night my parents died and left me alone with a crying baby brother. Come here, let me see you. I approached the bed slowly, my heart pounding. This was the man Kang Do-hyun hated more than anyone in the world. The man who had supposedly destroyed his family. But looking at him now, I saw only a dying old man, desperate to see his daughter one last time. You look so much like your mother. Seo Jae-won reached out a trembling hand to touch my face. I thought I would never see you again. I thought you would hate me forever for what happened. I do not hate you. It was the truth, at least about Seo Jae-won. I did not know him well enough to hate him, and the pain in his eyes was too real to be an act. I should have come for you sooner. Tears leaked from the corners of his eyes. I should have fought harder to keep you. But your mother threatened to disappear completely if I tried to find you. She said she would take you somewhere I would never find you. She was so angry, so hurt. I did not know what else to do. I understand. Do you? His hand gripped mine with surprising strength. Do you understand that I have spent 20 years regretting every choice I made? That I would give everything I have for one more day with you? I looked into his eyes and saw nothing but genuine love and remorse. Either Seo Jae-won was the greatest actor in the world, or Kang Do-hyun had been wrong about him. I am here now, I said softly. That is what matters. The door behind me slammed open, so the prodigal daughter returns. I turned to find a young man striding into the room. He was handsome in a dissolute way, with bags under his eyes and an arrogant curl to his lip. His suit was expensive but rumpled, as if he had slept in it. This had to be Seo Min-ho, the son and current heir. 20 years without a word, and suddenly you show up right when father is dying? How convenient. Minho. Seo Jae-won's voice sharpened with warning. That is no way to greet your sister. She is not my sister. Minho circled me like a shark, his eyes cold and assessing. For all we know, she is some gold digger Kang Do-yeon sent to steal our family fortune. I felt a chill run down my spine. He knew. Or at least, he suspected. But before I could respond, another voice cut through the tension. That is enough, Minho. A woman appeared in the doorway. She was beautiful in a severe way, with perfectly styled hair and a designer dress that probably cost more than my entire apartment. Her makeup was flawless, her posture perfect. This was Choi Soo-min, Seo Jae-won's second wife and Minho's mother. Miss Seo has been through a long journey, she said smoothly, coming to stand beside the bed. Let her rest before we subject her to an interrogation. Thank you, I said, genuinely surprised by her intervention. Soo-min smiled, but it did not reach her eyes. They remained cold and calculating, even as her lips curved. Of course. Welcome home, stepdaughter. I hope your stay will be comfortable. There was something threatening beneath her words, a warning wrapped in velvet. I realized that I had just stepped into a viper's den, and I was surrounded on all sides. Over the next few weeks, I learned the intricate dynamics of the Seo household. Minho was exactly as Kang Do-hyun had described. Arrogant, volatile, and nursing a gambling addiction that had cost the family millions. He spent most of his time at high-stakes poker games in Gangnam, or entertaining questionable business partners at exclusive clubs in Cheongdam-dong. He made no secret of his hostility toward me, constantly questioning my identity and searching for proof that I was an imposter. Every dinner was an interrogation. Where exactly did you grow up in America? What school did you attend? Do you remember the name of our family's beach house in Jeju? The questions came rapid fire, designed to catch me in a mistake. His mother, Soo-min, was more subtle but equally dangerous. She had married Seo Jae-won shortly after his divorce, using her beauty and cunning to secure her position. Now that her husband was dying, she was focused entirely on making sure Minho inherited everything. Having a long-lost daughter appear to claim half the estate was not part of her plan. She never confronted me directly. Instead, she undermined me in subtle ways, assigning me the coldest room in the house, making sure my meals arrived late, whispering to the servants about the strange woman who had appeared out of nowhere to steal the family fortune. But I also discovered allies I had not expected. Mrs. Jang, the housekeeper, was fiercely loyal to the memory of the real Minji's mother. She went out of her way to protect me from Soo-min's subtle cruelties, making sure I had the best blankets and the finest meals. She would leave small gifts in my room, traditional Korean snacks and fresh flowers, with notes saying things like, "Your mother loved these." Her kindness made my deception even harder to bear. And then there was Park Ji-won. He was the CEO of SEO Holdings' technology division, a self-made man who had risen through the ranks on pure talent and determination. At 32, he was considered one of the most eligible bachelors in Seoul, with sharp intelligence and a quiet integrity that set him apart from the other executives. The first time we met, I was hiding in the garden, trying to escape another dinner where Minho accused me of being a fraud. Rough night? I looked up to find him standing on the path, his suit jacket slung over one shoulder. The moonlight caught his features, revealing a handsome face with kind eyes. You could say that. Ji-won sat down on the bench beside me, keeping a respectful distance. I was in the room when Minho started his interrogation. For what it is worth, I think you handled it well. Thank you. I looked at him curiously. You do not seem to think I am an imposter. That is because I knew Minji when we were children. My heart stopped. This was not in any of Kang Do-hyun's files. You did? Our families used to vacation together. Ji-won's smile was distant, lost in memory. Minji was always kind. She used to share her desserts with me because my mother said I was too fat. He looked at me and his eyes softened. You have the same kindness in your face. The same gentleness when you think no one is watching. I felt a wave of guilt so strong it nearly choked me. Here was someone who had actually known the real Minji, who still remembered her fondly, and I was wearing her identity like a stolen coat. I do not remember much from before, I said, which was at least partially true. My memories of that time are hazy. Could you tell me about her? About us? Over the following weeks, Jiwon became my guide to a past I had never lived. He told me stories of childhood summers at the beach in Busan, of playing hide-and-seek in the mansion's endless corridors, of Minji's mother singing them both to sleep with traditional Korean lullabies. She had the most beautiful voice, he said one evening as we walked through the gardens. When she sang, it was like the whole world stopped to listen. Minji used to say her mother's voice could make flowers bloom and birds cry, and slowly, without meaning to, I began to fall for him. It started with small things. The way he always made sure I had tea when I looked tired. The way he stood up to Minho when his accusations grew too vicious. The way he looked at me like I was actually worth seeing. Not just the Seo family fortune I represented. But I could not let myself love him. Not when everything between us was built on a lie. Meanwhile, I was making progress on my real mission. I had gained access to Seo Jae-won's private study, where years of financial records were stored. I photographed documents and sent them to Kang Do-hyun through encrypted messages. I eavesdropped on conversations between Sumin and her lawyers. I pieced together a picture of a family that was as broken as it was wealthy. But I did not find what Kang Do-hyun was looking for. There was no evidence that Seo Jae-hwan had driven anyone to suicide. No proof of bribery or stock manipulation. The documents I found showed a man who had made hard decisions but always within the law. There were aggressive business tactics, yes. Ruthless negotiations, but nothing illegal. You are not looking hard enough, Kang Do-hyun said when I met him secretly at a coffee shop in Cheongdam-dong. We sat in a private back room away from prying eyes. The evidence exists. You just have to find it. What if it does not? What if you are wrong about him? I am not wrong. His eyes were cold, but his hands trembled slightly as he held his coffee cup. The SEO family destroyed everything I loved. They will pay for what they did. How can you be so certain? Because I watched my father die. Kang Do-hyun's voice was steady, but I could see the pain beneath the surface. I was 8 years old. He lost his company, his reputation, everything. And the last thing he said before he pulled the trigger was Seo Jae-won's name. I heard it. I was hiding in the closet because I knew something was wrong. I heard the gunshot. I saw what was left of him when I finally came out. I reached out to touch his hand, but he pulled away. I am sorry. No child should have to go through that. Sorry does not change anything. Only justice will. Find the evidence, Yuna, or I will find someone else who can. That night, I could not sleep. I wandered through the mansion's dark corridors, my mind churning with doubts. Was I helping a man seek justice or destroy innocence? Was Seo Jae-hwan truly the monster Kang Do-hyun believed him to be? Or was an 8-year-old boy's memory of his father's final words proof of anything at all? I found myself in the piano room, the one that had been locked since Minji's mother left. Mrs. Jang had given me the key weeks ago, saying it was where I belonged. The piano was a beautiful grand, covered in a layer of dust. I sat down and let my fingers rest on the keys. I had taken lessons as a child before my parents died. It had been years since I played, but the music came back to me. A simple melody at first, then something more complex. Something that matched the turmoil in my heart. I did not know that. I spun around to find Jiwon standing in the doorway. I thought you had gone home. I was going to. He stepped into the room, his eyes on the piano. But I heard the music and I had to see. Minji's mother used to play that song. It was called Moonlit Garden. She composed it herself. I felt my blood run cold. I do not know why I remembered it. It just came to me. Maybe because it is in your blood. Jiwon sat down beside me on the piano bench. Music is like that. It stays with us even when everything else is forgotten. He was so close I could smell his cologne. Something warm and woody, completely different from Kang Do-hyun's cold sophistication. Jiwon, I said quietly, what if I am not who you think I am? He was silent for a long moment. Then he reached out and turned my face toward him. I do not care who you are, Minji. I care who you are becoming. And the woman I have watched over these past weeks is someone kind, someone brave, someone who deserves to be loved. Before I could stop myself, I kissed him. It was soft and sweet and wrong. So wonderfully, terribly wrong. I pulled back, tears stinging my eyes. I cannot do this. I am sorry. I fled the room before he could see me cry. Everything began to unravel on the night of Seo Jae-won's birthday celebration. The mansion was transformed for the occasion. Thousands of lanterns hung from the trees, swaying gently in the evening breeze. Musicians played traditional Korean music. Servers in crisp white uniforms circulated with trays of champagne and canapes. The most powerful people in Seoul had gathered to pay their respects to the dying patriarch. I wore a hanbok of deep burgundy silk, one I had designed myself. As I descended the staircase, I saw Kang Do-hyun among the guests. He was not supposed to be here. Our eyes met across the crowded room. His lips curved in a slight smile. He was up to something. Ladies and gentlemen, Minho's voice rang out as he stepped onto the small stage that had been set up in the garden. Thank you all for coming to celebrate my father's birthday. But before we begin, I have a special announcement to make. My stomach dropped. Over the past weeks, I have been investigating the woman who claims to be my sister, Seo Minji. Minho's smile was triumphant. And I have discovered that she is nothing but an imposter. Gasps rippled through the crowd. I saw Jiwon push forward, his face pale. This woman, Minho continued, is actually Yoona Kim, a struggling fashion designer from Itaewon. She was recruited by Kang Do-hyun to infiltrate our family and steal our fortune. He produced a stack of photographs, images of me with Kang Do-hyun, documents bearing my real name, everything I had tried so hard to hide. The crowd turned to look at me. I saw shock, betrayal, anger. The powerful men and women who had smiled at me just moments ago now looked at me like I was something they had scraped off their expensive shoes. Is this true? Seo Jae-won's voice was quiet, but it carried across the silent garden. I looked at him. At his pale, drawn face. At the hope dying in his eyes. Yes, I whispered. Yes, it is true. The silence that followed was the loudest thing I had ever heard. Then Ji-won was at my side. Whatever she has done, there must be an explanation. Minji, tell them why. I shook my head. I could not explain. I could not justify the lies I had told, the hearts I had broken. Guards. Minho's voice was harsh with satisfaction. Remove this woman from the property, and call the police. Wait. Kang Do-hyun stepped forward, his commanding presence silencing the murmurs of the crowd. Before you throw her out, perhaps you should hear the whole story. Minho laughed. Why should we listen to anything you have to say? You are the one who sent her here. I did. Kang Do-hyun's voice was steady. I sent her to find evidence of your father's crimes. Evidence that he destroyed my family and drove my father to suicide. Seo Jae-won's face went pale. Your father? Do you mean Kang Tae-ho? I mean the man whose company you stole. The man whose reputation you ruined. The man who put a gun to his head because you left him with nothing. I never stole anything from your father. Seo Jae-won struggled to sit up in his wheelchair. Tae-ho was my friend. My best friend. When his company was failing, I offered to buy it so he could pay his debts. He refused. He was too proud to accept help from anyone. You are lying. I am dying. Seo Jae-won's voice was fierce. What reason would I have to lie now? Your father made bad investments. He trusted the wrong people. When everything collapsed, I tried to save him. But he would not let me. He said he would rather die than take charity from a friend. Kang Do-hyun's composure finally cracked. Then why did he say your name before he died? Because he blamed me for being successful when he had failed. Seo Jae-won's eyes were filled with old grief. Tae-ho and I grew up together. We started our companies at the same time. But I made better choices, and he could not forgive me for it. Kang Do-hyun stood frozen, his world collapsing around him. There are records, Seo Jae-won continued. Letters your father wrote before he died. I kept them because I hoped someday you would come to me and I could show you the truth. Have Secretary Jang bring the box from my safe. When the box arrived, it was filled with yellowed papers, letters from Kang Tae-ho, written in the months before his death. Letters that told a story completely different from the one Kang Do-hyun had believed his whole life. His father had been a proud, stubborn man who refused help even when he desperately needed it. He had made risky investments that failed. He had borrowed money from dangerous people and could not pay it back. And in the end, he had blamed everyone but himself. This cannot be true. Kang Do-hyun's voice was hollow. I have spent 20 years planning my revenge. 20 years of my life dedicated to destroying you. I know. Seo Jae-won reached out a trembling hand. And I should have found you sooner. I should have shown you these letters before you wasted your life on hatred. The crowd stood silent, witnesses to a tragedy that spanned generations. Then Minho stepped forward, his face twisted with fury. This changes nothing. She is still an imposter. She still lied to all of us. She should be arrested. No. Everyone turned to look at Seo Jae-won. This woman came into my home under false pretenses. He looked at me and I saw something unexpected in his eyes. Forgiveness. But she also gave a dying old man something he never thought he would have again. Hope. She is a criminal, Minho protested. She is someone who was willing to sacrifice everything for the person she loved. Seo Jae-won smiled sadly. I understand that kind of love. I wish I had been brave enough to show it when I had the chance. He gestured for me to come closer. I approached on trembling legs. Your brother, he said softly. Is he well? Yes. Thanks to the money I received, he survived his surgery. He is recovering. Good. Seo Jae-hwan took my hand in his. I have a proposition for you, Yoona Kim. A real one this time. No lies, no deception, just an honest offer. I do not understand. My daughter is gone. He said the words quietly, with the weight of long-held grief. I will never see her again. But I have watched you these past weeks. You have my Minji's kindness, her strength, her creativity. I felt tears streaming down my face. I am so sorry for deceiving you. I never wanted to hurt anyone. I know, and I forgive you. He squeezed my hand. I want you to stay, not as my daughter, but as yourself. Yoona Kim, fashion designer. I will invest in your career. I will help you achieve everything you have dreamed of. And in return, perhaps you will visit an old man occasionally and let him pretend he still has family. I looked at this man who should have hated me, who had every right to throw me out and never speak to me again. And I saw only grace. I would be honored. You cannot be serious. Minho's face was red with rage. Father, she came here to destroy us. No. Kang Do-hyun stepped forward, his voice heavy with guilt. She came here because I forced her. She had no choice. Her brother was dying, and I used that desperation against her. He looked at me, and for the first time, I saw the man behind the mask of cold calculation. I am sorry, Yoona, for everything I put you through. I was so consumed by my need for revenge that I did not care who I hurt along the way. Do-hyun. Seo Jae-won's voice was gentle. Your father was my friend. Even at the end, even when he blamed me, I loved him. I should have done more to help him. To help you. You could not have saved him. Kang Do-hyun's voice cracked. He was too proud to be saved. But I could have saved you. And I failed. Seo Jae-won looked between us. Perhaps it is not too late for both of you to start again. The party broke up after that. The guests departed, whispering about scandals and revelations. But I noticed that many of them looked at me with something other than judgment in their eyes. Curiosity, perhaps. Or even admiration. Ji-won found me alone in the garden, watching the lanterns float in the darkness. You should have told me. I know. I could not meet his eyes. I wanted to, so many times, but I was afraid you would hate me. He was silent for a long moment. Then he reached out and lifted my chin. I could never hate you, Yoona Kim. He said my real name like it was a treasure, like it was something beautiful and valuable. You are not angry? I am devastated. He smiled sadly. I am devastated that you felt you could not trust me. I am devastated that you went through all of this alone. But I am not angry. How can you be so understanding? Because I know what it means to love someone so much you would do anything for them. His eyes held mine. My mother was sick when I was young. I worked 3 jobs to pay for her treatment. I would have done anything, compromised any principle to save her. But you did not deceive anyone. No, I was lucky. I found legal ways to earn money. He took my hands in his. But if I had been in your position with no options and no hope, I like to think I would have had your courage. It was not courage. I was desperate and scared. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is acting despite it. He pulled me closer. And you are the bravest person I have ever met. When he kissed me this time, I did not pull away. The months that followed were a time of healing for everyone. Seo Jaewon's health stabilized, thanks to a new experimental treatment that his doctors had been reluctant to try. He would never fully recover, but he was given more time. Time to make peace with his past and build relationships with the people around him. Kang Do-yeon withdrew from public life for a while. He used the letters from his father to finally understand the truth of what had happened. It was a painful process, unlearning decades of hatred, but he faced it with the same determination he had once applied to revenge. He and I met occasionally for coffee. Our relationship would never be normal, but there was a new honesty between us. He had tried to use me as a weapon, and I had almost let him. But we had both come out of the experience changed. I think I cared for you, he admitted once, staring into his cup. Or at least, the idea of you. The perfect instrument for my revenge. And now I know you are your own person. Someone who deserves better than what I tried to make you. He looked up at me. I hope you find happiness with Jiwon. He is a good man. He is. And if he ever hurts you, I will destroy him. I laughed, but I could tell he was only partly joking. Minho's fate was less kind. When investigators began looking into the claims Kang Do-hyun had made about him, they uncovered a web of corruption that had nothing to do with his father. Gambling debts, assault charges that had been covered up, embezzlement from the company. He was removed from his position and placed on a strict probation. His mother, Sumin, retreated to a remote estate, her influence in the family finally broken. And me? I launched my fashion line with Seo Holdings' backing. My first collection was inspired by traditional Korean hanbok, reimagined for modern women. It debuted at Seoul Fashion Week to rave reviews. Ji-hoon recovered fully and finished medical school at the top of his class. He now works at Seoul National University Hospital, the same hospital where he almost died. Every time I visit him there, I remember how close I came to losing him. A year after the birthday party, Jiwon proposed to me in the piano room where we had first kissed. He had learned to play the song that had brought us together, and he performed it while I watched through tears of joy. We married in the Seo family garden, surrounded by cherry blossoms and the people we loved. Seo Jae-hwan gave me away, his wheelchair decorated with flowers. Ji-hoon stood as my witness. Even Kang Do-hyun attended, looking uncomfortable in his formal attire but determined to be part of this new chapter. My name is Yoona Kim. I am a fashion designer, a sister, a wife. I spent months pretending to be someone else, and in the process, I discovered who I truly am. I am someone who loves fiercely, who would do anything for the people I care about, who makes mistakes and finds the courage to admit them. I am not perfect. I am not a chaebol princess or a long-lost daughter. I am just myself. And that is finally enough. On our first wedding anniversary, Jiwon and I returned to the piano room. It had become our special place, the spot where we retreated when the world got too loud. Do you ever regret it? He asked, his arms wrapped around me from behind as we looked out at the garden. Everything that happened with the Seo family? I thought about it carefully. Regret was a complicated thing. I regret the lies I told. I regret hurting people who did not deserve it. But if I had not done what I did, Ji-hoon would have died. And I never would have met you. So no regrets? I turned in his arms to face him. Some, but not enough to wish things had happened differently. He kissed my forehead. That is the most honest answer you could give. I learn from my mistakes. You do. He smiled. It is one of the many things I love about you. Outside, the cherry blossoms were falling like pink snow. In the distance, I could see Seo Jae-hwan taking his evening walk through the garden, stronger now than he had been a year ago. Mrs. Jang walked beside him, still faithfully tending to the family she loved. Jiwon, I said softly. Yes? Thank you for seeing me. Not the mask I was wearing, but the person underneath. He pulled me closer. Thank you for taking off the mask. I was not sure I had a choice by the end. You always have a choice. That was what Kang Do-yoon had said to me, what felt like a lifetime ago. But Jiwon said it differently, with warmth instead of coldness, with love instead of calculation. You chose to be honest, he continued. You chose to face the consequences of what you had done. That takes more courage than anything else. I am still learning. We all are. The evening light painted the garden gold and crimson. I leaned into my husband's embrace and let myself feel something I had rarely experienced in my life. Peace. 2 years later, I stood in the grand ballroom of the Shilla Hotel, surrounded by the most influential people in Korean fashion. My third collection had just debuted to thunderous applause. Critics were calling it my best work yet. But the only review that mattered to me came from the front row, where my family sat watching with pride. Jiwon, holding our 6-month-old daughter Minjung, named in honor of the girl I had once pretended to be. Jihoon, now a successful surgeon, with his new fiancée beside him. Even Seo Jae-hwan, defying all medical predictions by surviving long enough to meet his honorary granddaughter. As I took my final bow, I caught Kang Do-yeon's eye from across the room. He raised his glass in a silent toast. We had both come so far from the damaged people we had been. He had channeled his drive and intelligence into legitimate business ventures, building something meaningful instead of destroying. I had faced my fears and emerged stronger. Neither of us was defined by our past anymore. After the show, as the crowd mingled and champagne flowed, I slipped away to the balcony overlooking the Seoul skyline. The city sparkled below me, a tapestry of light stretching from the mountains to the river. This was my home. Not because I had been born here or because I belonged to any particular family, but because I had chosen it. There you are. Jiwon joined me at the railing. Baby Minjung asleep against his chest. Just needed some air. He stood beside me, his shoulder touching mine. A long way from Itaewon. I laughed softly. A very long way. No regrets? It was our question, the one we asked each other whenever life felt overwhelming. None, I said, and meant it completely. He kissed my temple. Good. Because I have a feeling things are about to get even busier. Oh, the SEO Holdings board called while you were backstage. They want to discuss expanding your fashion line internationally. My heart skipped a beat. Really? Paris first, then Milan, then New York. He grinned. They said something about conquering the world. I looked out at the glittering city, thinking about everything I had been through to get here. The sacrifices, the lies, the heartbreak, and the love that had saved me from myself. Yuna? Jiwon said. Yes? I am proud of you. Simple words, but they meant everything. I thought about the girl I had been 2 years ago. Desperate, alone, willing to become someone else to save the person she loved. She could never have imagined this moment, this life, this happiness. But she had been brave enough to take the first step, and that had made all the difference. As the Seoul skyline sparkled around us and our daughter slept peacefully in her father's arms, I made a silent promise to myself. No more masks, no more pretending. From now on, I would face the world as myself. Yuna Kim, designer, wife, mother, and finally, completely whole. The fashion show reviews the next morning were everything I had hoped for. Yuna Kim transcends, proclaimed the headline in Vogue Korea. The Seoul Fashion Week darling proves she is ready for the global stage. I read the article over breakfast, Minjung babbling happily in her high chair, while Jiwon made pancakes in the kitchen of our apartment in Hanamdong. They are comparing you to great Korean designers who came before you, he said, glancing over my shoulder. That is a bit much, is it? He slid a plate of perfectly golden pancakes in front of me. You have come a long way in 2 years. You deserve every accolade. I deserve a husband who makes breakfast. That is all I need. He laughed and kissed the top of my head. Pancakes and world domination. Both can be arranged. My phone buzzed with a message from Kang Do-yeon. Congratulations on the reviews. Lunch next week to discuss the international expansion? I smiled. Even now, after everything, he could not help being involved in business. But his involvement was different now. Supportive instead of manipulative. Genuine instead of calculated. He had become something I never expected. A friend. I texted back a yes and set my phone aside. There would be time for business later. Right now, I wanted to enjoy this moment. The sunlight streaming through the windows of our apartment, the smell of fresh pancakes and coffee, the sound of my daughter's laughter. This was what I had been fighting for all along. Not wealth or status or recognition. Family. And I finally had one. 3 months later, my collection debuted in Paris. The show was held in a converted warehouse in the Marais district, transformed into a garden of light and fabric. Models walked through installations inspired by Korean nature, wearing designs that blended traditional and modern in ways no one had seen before. I watched from backstage, my heart pounding with every step they took. This was so much bigger than Seoul, so much more at stake. The international fashion press was notoriously critical of newcomers, especially those from outside the traditional fashion capitals. But when the final model took her bow and the audience erupted in applause, I knew I had succeeded. The after-party was a blur of congratulations and champagne. International buyers clamored for my attention. Magazine editors begged for exclusive interviews. Celebrities asked to be dressed for their next red carpet. It was everything I had ever dreamed of. But the moment that meant the most came later, when I finally escaped the crowd and found Jiwon waiting for me in the hotel lobby. You did it. We did it. I leaned into his embrace. I could not have done any of this without you. I disagree. But I am happy to share the credit. I laughed against his chest, always so modest, one of my many charms. We stood there for a long moment, just holding each other. The sounds of the city filtered through the windows. The magic of Paris swirled around us. Do you remember, I said softly, when you asked me if I had any regrets? I remember. I have one now. He pulled back to look at me, concern in his eyes. What is it? I should have kissed you in that piano room the first time we met. Jiwon's concern melted into a smile. We can make up for lost time. I plan to spend the rest of my life doing exactly that. He kissed me then, long and deep, and I felt the last trace of my old fears dissolve. I was no longer the desperate girl who had pretended to be someone else. I was Yuna Kim, and this was just the beginning. The night before our daughter's first birthday, I sat alone in the piano room of the Seo mansion. It had become a tradition. Every time something significant happened in my life, good or bad, I came here to play. To think, to remember how far I had come. The door opened softly behind me. I thought I would find you here. Seo Jae-won wheeled himself into the room, looking frail but content. His illness had stabilized, giving him years he never expected to have. I hope I did not wake you. At my age, sleep is a sometime friend. He positioned his wheelchair beside the piano bench. Play something for me? I let my fingers find the keys. The melody that emerged was one I had written myself, inspired by everything I had experienced. The pain and the joy, the loss and the love. When I finished, I saw tears on the old man's cheeks. That was beautiful. You have real talent, Yuna. Not just in fashion, but in everything you do. Thank you. You know, he said slowly, when you first came to this house, I knew something was different. You did? Not that you were an imposter, but that you were carrying a burden too heavy for one person. He smiled gently. I have seen that look before. In my own mirror, many years ago. When your wife left, when I let her leave, when I chose pride over love and lost everything that mattered. He reached out and took my hand. I was given a second chance with you, a daughter I never expected, a family I did not deserve. You deserve more than you know. So do you. He squeezed my hand. Promise me something. Anything. Promise me you will never let fear stop you from loving, from taking chances, from being exactly who you are. I looked at this man who had shown me grace when I deserved judgment, who had welcomed me into his family when he had every reason to turn me away. I promise. He nodded, satisfied. Now go home to your husband and daughter. Tomorrow is a celebration. I kissed his weathered cheek and left him there in the moonlit room, knowing that he would find his own peace in the music. As I walked through the garden, past the lanterns and the cherry trees, I thought about the journey that had brought me here. A desperate bargain, a false identity, a cruel scheme that somehow led to the truest love I had ever known. Life had a strange way of working out, and as I drove home through the sleeping streets of Seoul, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. For Jihoon, who had survived and thrived. For Jiwon, who had seen through the mask and loved me anyway. For Seo Jae-hwan, who had chosen forgiveness over vengeance. For Kang Do-yoon, who had learned to let go of hate. For Min-jung, who represented everything good about the future. And for myself. The woman who had been afraid to exist, who had hidden behind other people's names, who had almost lost herself entirely. I had found my way back, and I would never lose myself again. Min-jung's first birthday party was held in the Seo Mansion garden, under the same cherry trees that had witnessed my wedding. Everyone I loved was there. Jihoon, with his fiancée, a fellow doctor he had met during his residency. Mrs. Jang, who had appointed herself honorary grandmother. The fashion industry friends I had made over the past 2 years. Even Kang Do-yoon came, bringing a ridiculously expensive gift that Min-jung promptly ignored in favor of the wrapping paper. "She has good taste," he said dryly. "The paper is more interesting than the toy." "She takes after her mother," Jiwon replied. "Simple pleasures." I watched them banter, marveling at how things had changed. 2 years ago, these men had been on opposite sides of an impossible situation. Now they were something like friends. Miracles happened every day. As the party wound down and the guests departed, I found myself alone with Seo Jae-won in his favorite spot by the koi pond. "Thank you," I said. "For everything. For believing in me when I did not deserve it. You have thanked me enough." He smiled. "Now I want you to make me a different promise." "Another one? This is the last." His eyes were serious. "When I am gone, do not mourn too long. Remember me with joy, not sorrow, and take care of this family I am leaving behind." I felt tears threaten. "You are not going anywhere yet. Perhaps not. But I am old and I am tired, and I have made peace with whatever comes next." He took my hand. The only thing that still worried me was what would happen to all of this. He gestured at the garden, the mansion, the life he had built. "But now I know it will be in good hands. I will take care of it, I promise. I know you will." He patted my hand. "Now go. Your daughter is looking for you." I looked over to see Min-jung toddling across the grass toward me, her face lit up with the pure joy of a child discovering the world. I scooped her up and held her close, breathing in her baby scent. "Mama," she said, her first words still new enough to make my heart soar. "I am here, sweetheart. I am right here, and I always would be." That night, after Min-jung was asleep and the house was quiet, Jiwon and I sat on the balcony of our apartment, watching the stars. "Big day," he said. "The biggest. She is growing up so fast. Too fast." I leaned against his shoulder. "Do you think she will understand someday? About how we met? About everything that happened?" He was quiet for a moment. "I think she will understand that her parents loved each other, that they made mistakes and learned from them, that they built something beautiful out of something broken. That is a good answer. I have had time to think about it." He kissed the top of my head. "You know what I realized today?" "What?" "That I would not change anything. Not the lies, not the pain, not any of it. Because it all led here. To you. To her. To this life we have built together." I felt tears prick my eyes. "That is the most romantic thing you have ever said. I can be romantic. You can be many things. Talented, handsome, incredibly good at making pancakes." I laughed. "All of the above." We sat in comfortable silence, watching the night sky. Somewhere in the city, people were living their own stories, making their own mistakes, finding their own redemption. But this was my story. The girl who pretended to be someone else and discovered who she really was. The woman who found love in the last place she expected. The mother who would do anything to protect her child. the designer who conquered the fashion world, the wife who had found her home. I was all of these things, and for the first time in my life, I was exactly where I belonged. The story continues, of course. Life does not stop just because you find your happy ending. There would be challenges ahead. More fashion shows, more family dramas, the inevitable loss of Seo Jae-won when his time finally came, the joys of watching Min-jung grow up, the work of building something that would last. But I was ready for all of it, because I was no longer afraid, not of failure, not of judgment, not of being seen for who I really was. I had worn a mask to survive, but I had learned that my true face was beautiful enough on its own. And that was the greatest revelation of all. 5 years later, I stood on the runway in New York watching models walk in my newest collection. The theme was rebirth. Each design told a story of transformation, of shedding old identities and embracing new ones. It was my most personal work yet. In the front row, Jiwon sat with Min-jung, now 5 years old and already showing signs of her mother's creative spirit. She was sketching in a little notebook, designing her own dresses. Beside them sat Ji-hoon, now the head of his department at the hospital, and his wife, pregnant with their first child. And in the seat of honor, holding court like the patriarch he had become, was Seo Jae-won. Against all odds, he had lived to see another 5 years. His doctors called it a miracle. I called it stubbornness. When the show ended and the applause washed over me, I thought about everything I had gained and lost on the journey to this moment. I had lost my innocence, my anonymity, the comfortable obscurity of a struggling artist. But I had gained so much more. A family, a purpose, a love that I never thought I deserved. And most importantly, I had gained myself. The real Yoona Kim. Not the mask I had worn or the role I had played, but the woman underneath it all. As I took my final bow, I caught my daughter's eye. She was waving enthusiastically, her little face beaming with pride. I waved back, tears streaming down my face. This was my legacy, not the clothes or the fame or the money. This moment, this family, this love. And as I walked backstage, surrounded by my team and my dreams, I knew that I had finally found what I had been searching for my whole life. Home? Not a place, not a building, not even a name, but a feeling. A belonging. A peace that came from knowing exactly who I was and being proud of it. I was Yoona Kim, and that was more than enough. As I closed my eyes that night, wrapped in my husband's arms, I thought about the words that had started this journey. I want you to become her. Kang Do-hyun had said that to me on the day we made our deal, but he had been wrong about what it meant. I did not become Seo Minji. I became myself, and that was worth more than all the fortunes in the world. Sometimes, late at night, when Min-jung was asleep and Ji-won was working in his study, I would sit by the window and watch the city lights. Seoul had changed so much since I was a girl, struggling to make ends meet in that tiny studio in Itaewon. New buildings had risen. Old neighborhoods had transformed. The city I knew had evolved into something bigger, shinier, more complicated. But some things remained the same. The Han River still flowed through the heart of the city, unchanged by the buildings that lined its banks. The mountains still surrounded Seoul like protective guardians, their peaks visible even through the city smog. And somewhere out there, people were still struggling, still fighting, still hoping for something better. I thought about Ji-hoon, who had once been one of those struggling people. Now he was a respected surgeon, saving lives every day. He had married his hospital colleague, a brilliant woman named Soo-yeon, who made him laugh in a way I had never seen before. They were expecting twins. I thought about Kang Do-hyun, who had been consumed by hatred for so long. He had founded a charity in his father's name, helping children who had lost their parents to tragedy. It was not redemption exactly, but it was a step towards something better. I thought about Seo Jae-won, who had defied all expectations by living another 5 years. He spent his days in the garden now, watching the seasons change, surrounded by the people who loved him. When he finally passed, it was peacefully, in his sleep, with a smile on his face. And I thought about myself, the girl who had once been afraid to exist, who had hidden behind masks and borrowed identities. who had nearly lost everything trying to save her brother. That girl was gone now. In her place was a woman who knew her own worth, who had built something meaningful from nothing, who had learned that the greatest strength was not in pretending to be someone else, but in having the courage to be yourself. The window fogged slightly as I breathed against it. Outside, a light snow had begun to fall, dusting the city in white. You are thinking too hard again. I turned to find Jiwon standing in the doorway, 2 cups of tea in his hands. How do you always know? Because I know you. He crossed the room and handed me a cup. What are you thinking about? Everything. Nothing. The past. And the future? I looked out at the falling snow, at the city I loved, at the reflection of the man I loved even more. The future is not something I think about anymore. I only think about now. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I turned to face him, setting my tea aside. It is a perfect thing. He smiled and pulled me close. Have I told you today that I love you? Only twice. I wrapped my arms around his neck. I think you are slacking. Well, we cannot have that. He kissed me softly. I love you. 3 times. I love you. 4. I love you. I laughed against his lips. Okay. I believe you. Good. Because I plan to tell you at least 100 more times before the night is over. That is a lot of I love yous. I have a lot of love to give. We stood there for a long moment, wrapped in each other's arms, watching the snow fall over Seoul. It was not a perfect life. There were still challenges, still struggles, still moments when I wondered if I was doing everything wrong. But it was my life. And I had earned every single moment of it. Yuna? Yes? Thank you. For what? For choosing me. For choosing us. For being brave enough to be yourself. I looked up at him. This man who had seen through every mask, every pretense, every lie. Who had loved me anyway? Thank you for making it easy. He raised an eyebrow. I made it easy? Well, easier. He laughed, and the sound filled the room like music. I love you, Yuna Kim. I love you too, Park Ji-won. Outside, the snow continued to fall. Inside, we held each other close. And somewhere in the city, a young woman was probably making a desperate choice, just like I had once made. Probably standing at a crossroads, not knowing which way to turn. I hoped she would find her way. I hoped she would find someone to believe in her. I hoped she would find the courage to take off her mask and show the world who she really was. Because that was the secret I had learned, the hard way, over years of struggle and growth. The masks we wear to protect ourselves can also trap us. The identities we borrow can become prisons. And the only way to truly be free is to have the courage to be ourselves. It had taken me a long time to learn that lesson, but I had learned it. And now, standing in the arms of the man I loved, watching the snow fall over the city that had become my home, I knew that every struggle had been worth it. Every tear, every fear, every lie. They had all led me here, to this moment, to this life, to this love, and I would not change a single thing.